More now on the inauguration of Donald Trump. We are joined by former Trump senior advisor Omarosa Manigault-Newman now. Omarosa, good to see you. So we saw a very emboldened Donald Trump being sworn in as president for the second time. He had a lot to say.
He did have a lot to say. First of all, good to see you guys. What an interesting day. I mean, to watch the inauguration inside instead of outside where it traditionally is held, where we stood, when Trump was originally elected. It was really interesting to see the change in the venue in terms of it being inside, but also to see all of the different faces that were surrounding Donald Trump. Donald Trump was surrounded by the wealthiest Americans in the world and one of the wealthiest men in the world. And I think that that says a lot about his priorities. But his speech was also very interesting, don't you think?
Well, he was squaring up a bit on what happened to him. And look, some of it must have been like pulling teeth for you to watch, Omarosa. Just tell us how you felt personally watching it all unfold.
I wasn't in any way reactionary. You have to remember, I met Donald Trump in 2003.
Yeah.
I could have written this speech for him just knowing him so well. I wasn't shocked or surprised by the tone nor the tenor that he took in this speech. It kind of built on his previous inauguration speech, which we were all calling American Carnage, right? It was so dark and they had no optimism whatsoever. And Donald always makes it about himself. So as I listened, I wanted to just kind of react the way Americans at home are reacting. I wanted to listen for how is he going to help bring down the cost of food, of everyday goods? How is he going to help people fill their gas tanks or fill their prescriptions? What is he going to do about the different crises that we face around the world? But all I heard was Donald Trump, who is willing to go out and settle a score for the people who he thought were against him or to build his legacy. I think you noticed he talked a lot about changing the names of the Gulf of Mexico, of going after Canada and Panama, and these sorts of things. These are things I believe that he's laying the foundation for his legacy.
I mean, he called this the golden age of America, that America's decline is over, that he declared today, January 21, as Liberation Day in the US as well. I mean, he's certainly, as you said there, looking at his legacy, which begins today with the signing of so many executive orders. A lot to change, it seems, in the US in coming days.
Yes, a lot will change. Not only will we see Donald Trump implement some of his worst impulses, but a lot of the things that he denied on the campaign from Project 2025 were some of the first things that he signed by way of executive action today. So a lot of contradiction we'll hear from Donald Trump. But one of the things that I think we need to hear is about unity. He mentioned in his speech that he was going to try to bring everyone together, but at every single turn in this speech, he was speaking with more of a divisive tone as opposed to a unifying tone. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, look, I mean, when you consider where America was 4 years ago, right? And no one, I mean, very few people apart from maybe Donald Trump and his immediate family would have thought that we'd ever see this. But he's been able to come back, and he believes he has a mandate now. Sarah asked a really good question. And look, you mentioned before the price of things, how he's going to fix it. He mentioned in that rambling speech about the speech afterwards that an apple costs $4, but his priority was the southern border and immigration. So how will things get cheaper in America?
Well, I hope that he can actually act on the things that he said he would do, because as I traveled the country throughout the summer, listening to Americans attending town halls, folks are hurting and they're not concerned about the southern border. They're concerned about their children's education. They're concerned about safety. They're concerned about the rise of crime in their communities. And more importantly, they're concerned about jobs and just having a livable wage. The first action that we saw was Donald Trump sending troops to the southern border. He needs to attend to the needs of American people, and he needs to meet them at the point of their need. And it's not at the southern border, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's what we're seeing straight away in the first hours of the president. Thank you so much for being with us again. Always good to catch up with you.
Thanks, Omarosa.
Appreciate it. Happening right now, the president's review of the troops is what you're seeing live on air at the Capitol. These are live pictures as the inauguration proceedings continue right across Washington, D.C.
Live across Australia, this is a special edition of Today, the inauguration of President Trump, with Carl Stefanovic and Sarah Arbo.
An historic morning right here on Today. Thank you so much for your company right across Australia. It's good to see you. As Australia wakes up to Donald Trump officially sworn in as the 47th President of the United States.
There has been a lot happening this morning, and let's check in now to Washington, D.C.
Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
It's a new era for America with a familiar Commander-in-Chief.
The golden age of America begins right now.
A president so mired in grievances from the past and an inaugural speech looking to the future.
First, we must be honest about the challenges we face. While they are plentiful, they will be annihilated by this great momentum that the world is now witnessing in the United States of America.
He spoke of fixing the justice system and outlined his immediate plans, including declaring a national emergency at the southern border and changing America's gender policy.
It will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
And some of the biggest cheers from the crowd came when President 47 spoke of the attempt on his life at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania.
My life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
J.D. Vance, once Vice President-elect, now officially a heartbeat away from the Oval Office.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Vice President.
There was an air kiss for wife Melania and chants of USA. President 47 shared a ride to the Capitol with his predecessor, Joe Biden. Earlier, the outgoing President and First Lady hosted their replacements at the White House for tea and coffee, a tradition that 4 years ago Trump refused to take part in. Freezing temperatures forced formalities inside for the first time in 40 years. There were only around 800 seats inside the Capitol Rotunda, including more than 500 reserved for members of Congress. This was the most exclusive of guest lists, a who's who of the president's influential inner circle. The titans of the tech world scored some of the best seats. Elon Musk, Apple's Tim Cook, Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, Amazon's Jeff Bezos, and the TikTok CEO, Shouzi Chu. The remaining living former US presidents there too. Barack Obama without his wife Michelle, and Trump's former Vice President Mike Pence also going solo. And from Australia, it was Foreign Minister Penny Wong representing our country. Today was a moment for the history books, and the eyes of the world are watching for what comes next.
For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day.
And a lot more still to play out today. But let's go now, in the meantime, to Nine's US correspondent, Lauren Tomasi, who is live at the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Lauren, good morning to you. We're already seeing action near the border.
We are, Sarah. Good morning to you. Donald Trump promised in his inaugural speech that he would be making actions immediately, saying that he was going to declare an emergency on the southern border of the United States. And we have fresh images just into the newsroom this morning showing that playing out right now. Armed police officers are guarding the border in El Paso, Texas. This is one of the major hubs of entry between Mexico and the United States. Those officers stationed there saying no one can pass right now. So we're seeing the effects of the 47th president already, just minutes, in fact, a couple of hours pillars into his presidency. But look, Donald Trump touched on a lot during this 30-minute speech in his inauguration, sworn in the Capitol Rotunda behind me here, just the second president to be sworn in that position. It was after he stepped out from that speech that he went to see supporters in one of the overflow rooms, and it was there that he addressed January 6 and what he calls the J6 hostages, people who were arrested and charged over the Capitol insurrection 4 years ago. Take a look.
And I was going to talk about the J6 hostages, but you'll be happy because, you know, it's action, not words that count. And you're going to see a lot of action.
So saying there that he is going to be taking action. He didn't speak about January 6 during that inaugural speech, but will be taking action. And we understand that Donald Trump will be signing pardons for those non-violent offenders who were arrested and charged over January 6. Right now, the 47th president is still inside the Capitol building. He is at a luncheon alongside wife Melania Trump, J.D. Vance, his vice president, and members of Congress. He has a busy afternoon as he has been officially signing in many of these executive orders, but Donald Trump ushering in a new era here in America.
All right, Lauren, thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Now to Nine's political editor, Charles Croucher, who's watched it all unfold with us this morning. Charles, good morning to you. What will the next few days and weeks look like?
It's been a morning, my friend, already, and it's going to be a few days, weeks and years with Donald Trump back in charge. What begins now with Donald Trump is those executive orders. 200, we're told, will happen. There'll be pardons signed as well. That will see action on the southern border in particular. Also, he vowed the beginning of the deportation, and I'm quoting him here, millions and millions of illegal aliens. We wait to see what that looks like. He'll settle into the Oval Office. From the coming days, there's also going to be cabinet nominations that are being voted on in the Senate, particularly those key roles around the Chief of Defence, the Secretary of Defence, Secretary of State, and also Secretary of the Treasury. He'll also make phone calls to world leaders. We wait to see if there is a call to Xi Jinping and what that relationship becomes like if those tariffs are imposed, and of course a call to Australia as well and our Prime Minister. We'll get an idea of Donald Trump's foreign policy, whether he will stick with the old alliances, particularly in Europe and in our area with the Quad. Good sign that Penny Wong was invited. Let's see if there's action there. And then there'll be the first press conferences as well. And that's when we'll start to get some of the detail, the meat on the bones of the things that Lauren just spoke about. Crucially, of that discussion, what happens with those tariffs? The much talked about, much anticipated, somewhat discussed tariffs that Donald Trump is looking at putting in place. How big are they? Who do they apply to? Which countries are in and out, and which products are involved? Because that will severely shape the way the world's economy works, and that could mean prices here in Australia as well. The other key thing we're looking for Donald Trump, what happens with those two wars going on at the moment? The one in the Middle East with the ceasefire that is signed, does that continue under the new president? And then the war in Ukraine. Donald Trump has vowed in the past he'll end that quickly. Now's the time we see if that happens.
All right, we're also going to Mars, Charles.
And Mars.
You didn't mention that one.
Not the first next couple of days. Give it some time. Maybe the 100 days.
Got to build the rocket first.
Fantastic. And more coverage coming up right now. Let's go to Jane.
Hey there, Today fans. Sarah and...
What's my name again?
Oh my God. Carl.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel, though. Subscribe now for more news, special reports, and amazing Aussie stories.
And Carl misbehaving,
Whoa,
of course.
that never happens.
Always happens.
What's she talking about?
Always happens.